Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and US NSA Jake Sullivan held a crucial meeting in Washington, D.C. earlier this week and agreed to significantly elevate the India-US initiative on critical and emerging technologies. Both sides have agreed to expand collaboration in AI, quantum technologies, and advanced wireless, joint development and production in defense, with an initial focus on jointly producing jet engines, enhancing collaboration on semiconductor supply chains, and advancing cooperation on research and development in 5G and 6G were the key takeaways from this meeting. We also heard that the Prime Minister is set to make a state visit to the United States this summer at the invitation of US President Joe Biden. Let me go across to former Indian Ambassador to the United States, Arun Singh. Ambassador Singh, thank you very much for joining us. Very clearly, the trade deal has been off the table. But do you think this collaboration in critical and emerging technologies replaces the trade deal in one way and boosts economic and technology partnership between the two countries?
Parikshit, I don't think it replaces the trade deal because the trade deal has its own place. But I think it can serve to build newer areas of cooperation and technology partnerships between the two countries. Now, talking of the trade deal, as you know, the trade establishments in both countries have been in conversation now for several years. And earlier we did hear the talk of trying to do a mini trade deal, but even that has been difficult to work out, perhaps because of existing interests on both sides. What each side wanted, the other was not in a position to give on that. But at the same time, from what I can see in the public domain, there is amicable and deep conversation on trade between the two countries. So that has one dimension. But looking at the issue of critical and emerging technologies, if I assess the comments that have come from both sides and the statements that have been issued, there was a sense that while there is growing strategic convergence between India and the US, and they are doing more and more together in different areas, the economic and technological dimension of the partnership needed further strengthening. Second, everybody says that there is a perfect storm of technology coming with AI, quantum, cyber, 6G, private sector, space, commercialization of space, biotech, semiconductors. And these are going to completely transform the way we live, the way we work. Now, if India is to remain in the lead among the countries in the world and lose out again in terms of technology opportunity, it would be useful for India to place some emphasis in these areas and partner with other countries, including leading countries in the world with this technology. So I think those have been some of the considerations behind seeking this partnership. Also, in all countries in the world, including in the US and in India, work in these areas at an initial stage. You don't as yet have established patterns of production, established interests, or established norms and standards. So if you can start by cooperating at the initial stage, you can then work together to develop norms and standards that also work for India. And once you've had the initial cooperation, you then move into a production cooperation arrangement. Then you can look at what kind of trading arrangement that works for both of you. So you can then do away with some of the challenges that you faced at the moment. Again, this is an area where it is not enough for just the government to play a role. But academia and the private sector will also have a role to play, because in several of these areas, the research is only at the academic level. And industry is trying to partner with academia to find out what can be translated into industrial production. So that was the reason, I think, why on 30th January itself, a day before the National Security Advisors had their formal conversation, both of them, along with the US Commerce Secretary, interacted with a large meeting where there was a presence of US and Indian industry and academia to signal to them that they would like to encourage cooperation between Indian and US industry in this area. And I think the final point that was important is that because these are cutting edge areas, there would be concern, including in US industry and academia, whether the government will bless this kind of cooperation. Because otherwise, at a later stage, they might worry that the government would step in and say that these are very sensitive areas of cooperation and should not partner with another country. So therefore, a message coming right in the beginning from the National Security Councils, the National Security Advisors of both the countries, that this is an area of cooperation where they feel that US and India are partners that from their national security perspective, they would encourage. So given all that, I think it's an important meeting, an important message that has been given. And again, if you recall, one major step in India-US
Ambassador Singh, if I may ask you about the Defence Industrial Cooperation Roadmap. Yeah, if I may ask you about the Defence Industrial Cooperation Roadmap, both sides have spoken about developing a new bilateral partnership there, joint production of jet engines as well. How significant is this in our growing defence partnership? We've seen a series of operationalization of agreements happen since 2014. How important is this aspect now?
So defence cooperation is certainly a growing area of cooperation between India and the US. Now, till 2008, when we had done the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement with the US, India had hardly bought any defense supplies from the US. By now, we have contracted to buy more than $20 billion worth of defense supplies from the US. Now, if you look at, for example, military exercises, the US does more military exercises with India than with any other country outside NATO. And India does more military exercises with the US than with any other country. And you have army exercises, navy exercises, air force exercises, tri-services exercises, special forces exercises. So you're building capability and capacity with that. And also India has done a series of what are called foundational agreements in terms of logistics support, communication security, in terms of sharing geospatial information. So defense cooperation potential is certainly building up, but where it has been lagging so far in terms of partnership in defense technology. And I think a message is sought to be sent through this meeting, and a reference there with the potential for partnership, not yet formalized, because clearance is still awaited from the US, potential for partnership in jet engine technology. If that goes through, then certainly it will take the defense technology partnership to another level. But the very fact that the US has signaled that they've received an application and they will try and process it on an expedited basis is an important message, but I hope they are able to allow that cooperation to go ahead. If they do it, it will be important.
Right. Ambassador Singh, the other big question, both sides have called this the next big thing in India-US ties. President Biden, while describing this meeting, has said that this will pave the way for democratizing technology, the technology environment. Tell us how this is important, how this agreement on critical and emerging technologies with India is important for the United States right now.
So first, if you look at the bilateral relationship aspect, we did this next steps in strategic partnership with the US in 2004. And which was the first major agreement done after our nuclear test in 1998 and the sanctions that the US had imposed on India in 1998. That statement on next steps allowed us to start cooperation in nuclear areas, in space, in defense. And it led to the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement with the US in 2008, which opened up access for India in higher technology in the US and leading to the, as I mentioned, nearly $20 billion worth of defense purchases from the US. Now, as far as the US is concerned, today they see China as their main threat, economic, technological, and military. And they have said that China is a pacing challenge for them. That's the challenge they're trying to meet. Now, if they are to meet the technology challenge from China, which has a population of 1.4 billion people, to scale up in terms of human resource capability, the US needs another partner. And India, with a country, again, of about 1.4 billion people, which has shown strength in human technical capability. If you look at the US, number of H-1B visa holders from India, people working in tech industries, CEOs of leading companies in the US of Indian origin, a large amount of R&D work being done in India for US companies. So they see India as a country that has the potential for being a partner for the US, which would be useful for the US for itself in meeting the China challenge. So that's the advantage from their point of view. And of course, from India's point of view, this kind of cooperation will enable us to leverage partnership in higher technology areas where work is also starting in India, and it will be of benefit to India.
Right. We've run out of time, but thank you very much, Ambassador Arun Singh, for putting that visit in perspective for our viewers. And let's see what happens when Prime Minister Modi visits the United States to meet President Joe Biden. And we will perhaps see the operationalization of some of the steps mentioned in the joint statement by both sides. Thank you very much for joining us. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.